Hello, and welcome to Timeless Stories for Sleep. Wherever this story finds you tonight, I am glad the world has brought our paths together. Perhaps you have settled beneath a blanket after many busy hours. Perhaps a quiet fan hums somewhere nearby, carrying cool air across the room. Perhaps rain taps softly against a distant window. Or perhaps the world outside has already fallen still. However you've arrived here, I am grateful for your company. Tonight, we will spend a little while together among some of the oldest stories humanity has ever chosen to remember. Somehow, they have crossed continents and centuries with remarkable persistence, shared by parents to children, discussed by philosophers, translated into countless languages, and managed to make it here tonight. There is something quietly remarkable about that. Aesop's Fables originated in ancient Greece, roughly 2,500 years ago. Let's go back there for a moment. Imagine an olive grove just beyond the edge of an ancient village. The afternoon work is finished. The air carries the scent of warm earth and wild herbs. The rustle of leaves and wind gently brush the green fruit. Beneath the silver-green branches, neighbors gather in the shade while one familiar voice begins another story. Through thousands of years, kingdoms have risen and disappeared. Languages have changed. Empires have forgotten their own names. Yet these little stories endured. Whenever that happens, I find myself asking a simple question. What did generations before us hear in these tales that they refused to let disappear? Tonight, we won't rush toward an answer. Instead, we'll simply sit beside the fire and listen. The Fox and the Grapes. The evening sun hung low over the countryside, casting long ribbons of golden light across rows of ancient vines. All summer the vineyard had quietly gathered the warmth of the sun. Patient hands had tended each vine, lifting wandering branches, pruning tired leaves, and waiting for the season to work its gentle miracle. Now the grapes hung in heavy clusters beneath a canopy of green. They were plump and full, their deep purple skins glowing with hints of ruby and amber wherever the fading sunlight passed through them. A cool breeze stirred the leaves, and the sweet fragrance of ripening fruit drifted softly through the air. Along a narrow path wandered a fox. He strolled down the path with a leisurely pace. Like many creatures at day's end, he simply followed wherever curiosity carried him. Then he stopped. Before him stood the vineyard. For a long moment, he simply admired it. Never had he seen grapes so beautiful. The clusters shone bright among the leaves, each one promising sweetness gathered from an entire season of sunshine. He stepped closer. The scent grew richer. His mouth watered. Surely, he thought, such wonderful fruit must taste even better than it looked. The grapes hung at a height amongst the trees that seemed attainable to the wide-eyed fox. He crouched. With a graceful leap, he sprang toward the nearest cluster. His paws brushed only empty air. He landed softly. Undeterred, he backed away and tried again. This time he leapt higher. Again the grapes remained just beyond his reach. The fox circled beneath the vines, studying them from every angle. The fox was slightly perplexed and chewed on the moment. He was a cunning creature, and his nature didn't allow him to be outmaneuvered often. Perhaps there was a better place to jump. Perhaps a running start. Perhaps just one more try. Again and again he reached upward. Again and again the vineyard kept its quiet distance. At last, the fox stood still. The evening breeze whispered through the leaves above him. The grapes swayed gently, untouched. For a moment, he looked up at them in silence. The earth stood still as the fox contemplated his next move. Then, with a small shake of his head, he turned away. "I dare say they were probably sour anyway," he murmured quietly, as though trying to convince no one more than himself. Without another glance, he disappeared into the gathering dusk. The vineyard remained. For a few peaceful moments, there was only the rustle of leaves and the warm glow of the setting sun. Then another figure entered between the vines. An old farmer carried a woven basket upon his arm. With practiced hands, he carefully cut each ripe cluster from the vine, placing it gently among the others. As the sun set, finally, the grapes fell, right into place. And so brings our story to a close. In this story, we see how perspective can influence the morality of a moment tremendously. There is something fascinating about how the same moment can hold two completely different stories. For the fox, this was an evening of disappointment. He found something beautiful, reached for it with all the determination he possessed, and walked away empty-handed. If we had followed only him, we might have thought the story ended there. But it didn't. Long before the fox wandered into the vineyard, another story had already begun. Someone had planted those vines. Someone had watered them through dry days, cared for them through changing seasons, and patiently waited for summer to become autumn. By the time the grapes were ready, they were no longer simply fruit hanging from a vine. They had become the reward of faithful work, the promise of a family meal, and the quiet joy of a successful harvest. The fox was never wrong for reaching. He was simply passing through a story that wasn't his own, even though he thought it was. Perhaps that is true more often than we realize. Sometimes we encounter things that seem perfect for us from where we stand. We wish they belonged to us. We wonder why they remain just beyond our reach. Yet we rarely see the whole picture. When one door closes, another one opens. What looks like a disappointment from one path may be the fulfillment of another. The grapes had a home long before the fox discovered them, and perhaps there is comfort in remembering that not everything beautiful is waiting for us to possess it. Some things are already part of another purpose, another season, another home. I thank you for joining me tonight and carrying forward the tradition of storytelling for another night. Until next time, I wish you a peaceful rest and a good night.